Thanks very much, everybody, for coming tonight. It's the regular meeting of Cambridge AI. We have kind of bi-monthly get-togethers to talk about this. I am Mark Rogers. I'm from Grounded AI. I read tech recruitment, and by Lightbringer. I'm going to hear a little bit from them before we get started. Grounded AI are a business founded here in Cambridge, and what we do is verification on academic publishing. We look at claims in papers and use LLMs to check that those claims are accurate. So coming soon to the Oxford University Press and various other academic publishers. So check us out if that's an area you're interested in. And I'd like to hand over now to Rebecca from Red Tag Recruitment, who will introduce herself.
Oh, hi everybody. Oh, wow, I sound quite loud. Okay, so thanks very much for coming along this evening. We are Red Tech, so just to let you know a little bit about us. We started life as a STEM recruitment agency, finding job opportunities for people coming out of academia, looking for their first roles within industry. In 2023, we actually pivoted and moved into doing experienced hires as well. Lots of people were kind of circling back to us. We do lots of help and advice videos. So if you are currently looking for a job, I do highly recommend you follow our TikTok and our Instagram page. And yeah, if anybody's hiring or they are looking for a job, do come and have a quick chat with us afterwards. There is also, thank you. Oh, I'm going to introduce as well. Sorry, this is Lee as well from the other sponsors from Lightbringer. Sorry.
Thank you, Rebecca. Afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good. First of all, thank Mark and the team for putting the event on. A really good turnout as well, which is great. So as I've been introduced, this side. So Lightbringer, we are a Swedish legal tech firm. And just to get kind of an idea in the room, has anyone been through the patent process or IP process at all? Yes, couple of hands. Okay, I'll go for gentleman in the middle. How did you find the process? I really like the fact that everyone detected the sarcasm in your voice then. And this is, it's an archaic way of doing things, with AI being how it is today, to make things a lot smoother, a lot faster, a lot more efficient, and obviously a lot more cost friendly. This is why Lightbringer came along. So it was founded 2023 by Dominic Davis. Very, very interesting fella. He is a UK and EU patent attorney, has been for just over 20 years, but he also has an engineering computer science degree from Imperial. Very forward-thinking person. If it was down to him, everything would be automated. We wouldn't be doing anything, I can promise you. But he saw it, the problem come in many years ago, where if you have an idea or an invention, you have to find the right attorney, you have to book a 2-3 hour meeting, all the information gets put onto paper, then again, not to go on too much, but it's a very long-winded process. So we now serve hundreds of innovators, streamlining and automating the patent process. And again, we save time, reduce errors, and it helps companies focus on the more important things. So bringing new innovations through. In terms of percentages, we save about 50% on calendar time and about 60% on cost. So our team combines expertise in IP, technology, entrepreneurship, and one clear mission, and that's to remove any legal obstacles from the patent process itself. So to give you an idea, I had a customer who was a spin out from Manchester. They have an amazing invention. They got invited over to the US to do a huge expo, but they had nothing in place. He went to 4 different attorneys, 2 in Manchester, 2 big firms in London. And the problem what he had is the expo was in 4 days and nobody could service it. So he found us on Google. I spoke to him. From the demonstration to putting in his information into our platform, we had a registered application within 4 working days. And that's the power of what we've built as an AI assisted tool. And these are the three things that we want to focus on, because and not just startups, scale-ups as well, and companies that are growing at a fast rate. Patent strategy is very complex and people get lost in it. And as soon as you turn up to an attorney's door and say, right, I want a patent strategy session, the clock is running and the bills are coming in. Now, that can all be done through, again, Lightbringer. IP portfolios cost capital and cost time. And again, we can reduce that by 50%. And limited visibility into portfolio development. And that's a really important one. So to get to know what your competitors are doing, we can download all of your competitor patents into the system. Our system can then analyze your portfolio and their portfolio and give you the best way forward in what you need to protect next. So it's very intuitive. And again, so what we want to do is create a very simple, very structured process from start to finish. So it starts off with creating a patent strategy, identifying the patent opportunities, and then executing on the patents that matter. A lot of companies, certainly scale-ups, will have tons of different inventions or innovations or ideas. And some of them don't need patenting. Some might just be trade secrets. And we're here to help you define what's going to be best for your company moving forward. And then we can also, once we've filed the patents, we can gain insights on your future technology. Again, my name is Lee Goodchild. I'm the Innovate Director for the UK. We are based in Cambridge, but I am also based in Sweden. So I fly over quite a bit, but all of my contact details are here. I've brought my laptop, so if anybody wants a demonstration of the platform, please feel free to come and find me. And I've got loads and loads of cards to give out, so you can give to your friends or whoever you feel necessary. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lee. Thank you. So just contextualizing this, we had a few comments at the beginning of the when we started putting out publicity about this, about defense and why we were doing this. And I just wanted to share a couple of things with you about what's going on in case you haven't seen it. Here's an example of a light show in China that was done recently. So it's you can just see an extraordinary demonstration of how many drones can be put into the air at one time. This technology is with us. Rory Stewart commented recently that the defence contractors who are excited by the idea of spending 350 million on a battle tank or a jet are less excited by the idea of contracting for a $1,000 drone. And he also came up with this statistic, which I thought was really interesting. If the US has got 2,500 battle tanks and China's got 5,000, that should read 5,000. Poland 777. How many battle-ready tanks do you think the UK has at the moment? Any ideas? 20. 20. So anyway, I'd like to, with that context, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Keith Deere is a former airman and defence analyst who's worked as an advisor to Number 10 as part of Dominic Cummings's crew of misfits and weirdos. Although he says that's not strictly true, so I'm going to go with it. And has written on defence and AI for the Royal United Service Institute. He's currently in stealth mode on a new startup. So Keith Deere, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Put a timer on to keep me honest. So Mark and the team think that I'm going to talk to you about defence and security, and I'm going to reassure you and say I am. But mostly I'm going to talk about you, talk about Thomas and John and Sam, Angel and Mika and Uti. We talk about you, all of you. In 1929, Harvey Jones, who's one of my heroes and the architect of the UK's or Britain's intelligence victory in the Second World War, was at the other place. He was at Wadham College. To reassure you, his archives are all here at Cambridge, so he saw the light eventually. R.V. Jones is at Wadham College and he meets his tutor, T.C. Keeley, both of them physicists. And the young R.V. Jones says to T.C. Keeley, what happens? It's 1929. What happens if war breaks out in Europe? You know, we'd had a decade in the UK of preparing for war at that stage. We'd increased our defence spending. We'd done everything we possibly can. We tried to do everything to avoid war. And in the end, it was very obvious that it wasn't going to be possible. So R.V. Jones says, what happens? And T.C. Keeley says, there will be a period of about 6 months where all those who've risen above their competence in peacetime will be found out. And we will either replace those people fast enough and turn this war around, in which case we will win or we won't. And we will have lost the war. And it won't escape your notice that that is broadly what happened in the Second World War. But I put it to you that where we stand today is much as we were in 1929, except we haven't had a decade of preparation. We've had nearly 30 years of declining to the point where we've only got 20 Challenger tanks. And the recent defence review, which I shall come back to, more or less tells us in pretty straight terms that it's quite likely that we might have to fight a war. And it's extremely likely that if we do, the first 6 months of it will be a disaster. I put it to you, and I start by naming you all, because I think that we are all R.V. Jones today. The reason that Britain was able to turn things around is because people like that in the sciences, in technology, stepped up, and because we were able to consistently lead in the technologies that won the Second World War. I will come on to this, but it will be AI that is the most important factor in determining who wins and who loses in the next conflicts. And therefore, there has never been a more important moment to work in this field, and never been a more important moment to focus on defence. The previous Secretary of State, one removed, so the last Conservative Secretary of State, said last year that we were within 5 years of a major war in Europe. The CIA at the time said they thought it was likely that President Xi would attempt to seize Taiwan before the end of 2027. Kaja Kallas, then in charge President or Prime Minister, I'm not sure, of Estonia, said that she thought it was very likely that Russia would attempt something outside of Ukraine within Europe before 2028. Sweden's Secretary of State for Defence said that we needed to be ready for war now and that it could come at any moment. The 86% of Japanese surveyed last year thought that it was very likely that Japan, a nation that has been pacifist since the end of the Second World War, would have to fight a war, and hence they have been doubling their defence budget every year since 2020. In fact, in 2019, if you'd opened Japan's defence white paper, you would have seen on the first page pink cherry blossoms and pictures of civilian aid to the military power and humanitarian disaster relief operations. 12 months later, if you'd opened the same thing, you would have seen a zombie samurai on a war horse. A radical change in how Japan sees the world. To give you an idea of how dramatically things have turned around, yesterday the Royal Air Force and Number 10 announced that we were buying F-35As and that we were buying them in order to be able to launch tactical nuclear weapons in case we had to fight Russia in Europe and fight at range. That would have been unthinkable, and it went almost unremarked. Mark mentioned Poland earlier, but Poland has said that every man must be battle ready. It will soon have the largest army in Europe. It's increased its defence budget by 31%. It's currently spending 4.7% of its GDP on defence. Remember that we're still at 2.6 and haggling over 2.7, and really is starting to begin to take this very seriously. Germany has increased its defence budget by 28%. It will soon have the third largest defence budget in the world, although since Japan keeps raising it, so there's kind of a back and forth between the two of them. China's defence spending last year went up 7%. That's 30 years now of consecutive years of growth in China's defence spending. It's because of those things. I think over 100 countries last year, over 100 countries globally increased their defence budget. So it's not just a thing that I'm telling you or those various authorities telling you. It is many nations in the world that think the war is coming and are preparing for it. It's for that reason that the recent Strategic Defence Review said that old certainties are being questioned, not only by authoritarians, but also by many of our allies. That was an oblique reference to the fear that maybe the US wouldn't come to our aid, and maybe it wasn't enough to just hope the Americans would spend enough such that they could defend us if we needed them to. They talk about a generational challenge, and as I said, they are a hair's breadth away from saying this would be a disaster. The National Security Strategy, published yesterday, said the likelihood that we may have to confront threats directly from the use of force is growing, and then went on to say that warfare between major powers across regions is an active possibility. Now that might feel fairly softly worded to many of you, but if you've worked in government, you would know that to get that in a document that is published means that there are people at the heart of government taking this very, very seriously. It would have been fought by many, many different departments to get that out, because by putting a statement like that in, it begins to drive resource allocation across government. So for them to say that a war across regions is an active possibility is a statement that the UK is just beginning to take seriously the prospect that we might have to fight another world war. Ben Wallace at the moment is engaged in something which I wasn't a fan of Ben Wallace in government. He didn't like me either. But Ben Wallace is currently engaged in something being run by Sky News called The War Game. It's a podcast. I commend it to all of you, which gives you an idea of what this might be like. The tagline in that is "Russia knows our weaknesses. Do you?" A couple of last points on defence before I move to AI more specifically. One of the articles that I published last year with Sky News was an article arguing there is no plan. After the First World War, which started disastrously, much like the Second, the UK began to publish something called the War Book. It's why we had 10 years worth of preparation for the Second World War and why it was slightly less disastrous than it might otherwise have been. The War Book was a plan across all of government, all of society. The BBC used to have their clear instructions on what they would do if war broke out. Every government department, every local authority knew what they would have to do. The War Book was abolished under the new Labour government and hasn't been resurrected by anyone since. There is no plan in the UK for if we might have to go to war. Why does that matter? Well, militaries fight battles, but countries fight wars. There has to be a national plan, and that national plan would involve all of you. I'll come back to this is about us. The reason for that threat, we face a revanchist Russia. Many of you remember the WannaCry attacks, misinformation, sabotage and subversion. They call that active measures. There are regular nuclear threats around the world. And Putin has said, whoever rules in AI, but it shows you the seriousness with which nations are taking it. In contrast, China might well lead in AI, and if Putin is right, therefore rule the world. China, until President Xi, had a policy of bide your time, thing from venture capitalism that looks to buy up tech companies that might be interesting. There was a period where they were buying called wolf warrior diplomacy, much more active, much more coercive diplomacy. In 2019, President Xi said that China would use all necessary means to retake Taiwan. And China has a defense doctrine that explicitly describes intelligence-sized warfare, which is the application of AI at every single level, from logistics to the micro-tactical to the most senior. Now, how seriously we should take this next thing, I caution, but nevertheless, there was a recent announcement that working with DeepSeek, they have developed what they call an AI commander, which can go through 10,000 different military scenarios in 48 seconds to find out what the most efficient path to victory is. Now, I have worked on similar projects in UK defence, and I can tell you that that is something that many people are looking at. China claims already to have it. So what? What I've tried to set out is that defence and security is all of our problem and that we must take it seriously. And I've tried to lay out a thesis largely in support of what many defence secretaries and the recent reviewers have said, that a major war is a growing probability that we need to prepare for. If it is likely that we will face a war within 5 years, then, and I pivot to AI. So the current median forecast for when we get to artificial general intelligence, there are fuzzy definitions of what that means in practice, but broadly one that matches humans in all cognitive domains. Anything that can be done at a computer will be done by a computer. So when we get to weak AGI, one that meets certain technical benchmarks, the median forecast of the world's largest crowdsourced platform for forecasting, the median estimate is 2027, just 2 years away. The median estimate for when we get to Oracle AGI, one that exceeds human cognition in all dimensions, is 2028. And the median estimate for when we get to ASI, so an artificial intelligence that exceeds human capabilities in all dimensions, including those things that historically machines have found hard, but we find easy because we've had 300,000 years of evolution optimizing against them. Those are proprioception, our sense of ourselves in time and space, our ability to extend that to the use of tools, dexterity, which needs no further introduction, and locomotion, like moving through complex terrain. Machines find all those things hard. The median estimate for when AI exceeds us in those domains is now 2029. All of those things have been trending closer to the present. There are many people who have much more aggressive timelines for when we get there. If it is likely that we fight a war within the next 5 years, on timelines of 2027, 2028, 2029 means we will be fighting those wars with AGI a major component on one or all sides. Why is that likely? Well, Moore's law, which completely transformed the world, was 2x increase in computational power through the increasing density of semiconductors every 18 months, 2x every 18 months. Right now, AI is progressing, so the cost for a given level of intelligence drops 10x. Software and in semiconductors that allowed software to eat the world, AI is now eating software, and AI is now eating the world. Between 2012 and 2018, we saw a 300,000x increase in the amount of computational power we could apply to current AI models. If your mobile phone had improved its battery life at the same pace, it would have gone from lasting 1 day on a single charge in 2012 to lasting 800 years on a single charge by 2018. But it hasn't stopped. Between 2019 and 2023, we've seen a 200,000x increase in the amount of computational power we can apply to these models. Today, every major AI company are building nucleus power stations and harnessing the energy networks in order to increase that. And Epoch AI forecast that we'll see another 200,000x increase in the power of these models by 2030. And these are not abstract things. Google's GNOME, developed by DeepMind, produced 380,000 new materials in the field of materials science. That's about 800 years worth of human knowledge, 800 years equivalent of what we'd found in the past. Why does that matter? Materials science came out of the Second World War, came out of the UK and the US, and it was explicitly designed to develop new materials to build war-winning weapons. And what did DeepMind do with that? Well, because we hadn't entered quite the period where people were taking defence so seriously, they open sourced all of those materials such that anybody can access them. I could go on and on and on, but I'm conscious of time. The stats and the underlying drivers of the change are all consistently moving in one direction. Leopold Aschenbrenner talks about these as straight lines on graphs. You don't need to believe in science fiction to believe what I've told you about where AI is going. You just need to believe in straight lines on graphs. And if you're going to disagree, you should have a really principled reason for why you think they'll stop, because people like the Epoch AI and others are showing why they continue. A quick so what, and then I'll wrap up. I think that's my cue to add the so what and wrap up. So when we wrote the integrated review, the rewrite of the UK's international strategy in 2020, we put first and foremost the science superpower agenda. Now, the UK has been the world's leading scientific nation by citation weighting. There's many reasons why you might quibble with whether we're actually the world's leading scientific nation, but by citation weighting in the G7 every year since 2007. So arguably we are already a science superpower. But we were 27th of inventions, and nearly all the metrics show us getting worse. The science superpower agenda was aimed at you. Remember where I started. It was aimed at those of you that work in to commercialise the destiny. For companies and countries alike, automation, robotics and AI reduce companies and countries' dependence on people to create wealth, for manufacturing, to deliver services, but also to produce armed forces to deter or fight, back to Mark's image of the drones. With that idea in your mind, you can see why it is so crucial that we win in AI. Not only that, but as AI recursively improves AI, we're going to move to a world where what determines whether you win as a business, as a company or a country alike is not any given product or capability, but the effectiveness with which you can innovate. We will link frontline to factory and innovate. The only way you can keep up with that pace of change is to work backwards, to think about what you're going to need and invent the technologies that we need for it. That was where T.C. Keeley in the First World War and R.V. Jones in the Second World War were able to turn our fortunes around, thinking about what technologies we needed to win the war and inventing them. That today is your challenge too. There's never been a more pressing time to work in this technology. If what I said in the first half of the talk is true, then we'll be fighting the next war with AGI, and that will determine which nation wins. And I tried to lay out the thesis today that says this isn't somebody else's problem, this is our problem for all of us in this room.
Thank you very much, Keith. So, sorry, before you sit down, just time for a couple of questions from the audience. There's a mic here, so if you wouldn't mind waiting, we're recording this, so if you wouldn't mind waiting for the mic to reach you before you ask. And you can say who you are.
Thank you very much. My name's Dugan. Brilliant talk, thank you.
Thanks.
I agree with most of what you said, especially about the timelines. You spoke about medians. I'd be interested in knowing the distribution of those estimates, but I'd be more interested in hearing your view on Jan LeCun's recent statements that AGI is way down the line, and he used, decades, not single years.
Yeah, so there's one challenge of definitions which we could spend the rest of the evening on. I gave you a kind of I think one that is broadly accepted. I think my personal view is that all of those forecasts have been trending this way, and I think it's more likely that we'll get there faster than we've expected. That's why I could give you another 10 examples of how that has been the case in recent years. I think you have Jan LeCun, Gary Marcus, of course, is the one who's conscious no matter what we do, it's always never going to get us to AGI. It's not really that significant. I don't buy that argument. I think those people have lost the argument, and I understand some of the principled reasons why they make them. But for me, if you're using 0.3, for example, today, the advice it's giving you is probably better than the advice most of your friends could give you on almost any topic. I'm not suggesting it's better than all humans and that it's always right, but most of the time, it's better than what you would get from phoning up most of the people you know, even if they were an expert in the area. Like, we're not far off it now. So for me, those straight lines on graphs are completely compelling. And I don't think Jan LeCun offers a convincing reason for why scaling laws won't continue to hold as they have done since 2012. That would be mine.
From a defense perspective, how fast does the AI problem become an energy problem, especially in the UK?
Say again, how fast does
The AI
arms, and one of the arguments I make in that is that we should be building small modular nuclear reactors and data centers underground, because I think the primary target, so it's already the case, it's alleged that Russia cut one of our undersea internet cables to the Shetlands, I think last year or the year before now, as a kind of demonstration of the things that they could do. And I think that's just the beginning. I think data centers, power cables, internet cables, they will be the first targets in a war, in the same way that radars and power stations used to be. So yeah, I think that's exactly, they're one and the same.
Well, thank you very much for a very chilling dose of reality. Just to be clear, your call to action for people in the AI community, I mean, to me, it landed as quite a rallying call.
Yeah.
Would you encourage people to be looking towards working in defense specifically, or are you encouraging the AI community to simply keep doubling down on, towards general intelligence? Or what should we be doing?
Well, so I think I gave the talk the way I did because I think the tech community more broadly is not always as engaged with defence as I think it should be. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody needs to resign tomorrow and go and work for Palantir. I mean, quite the opposite. I mean, that's a whole separate thing about dependence on US companies. But I think the case that I'm making is that we need to be much more aware of defence and security and what we're doing. We need to be aware that there are VCs from actively hostile countries trying to get look through into our country and into our companies. And I think, yes, I would like to see more people actively working in defence, but the point of the rallying call is more for people to be much more aware and talking about what is happening. I mean, yeah, given more time, there's a lot more I could say, but that was the purpose of me laying it out the way I did. I think I expected more challenge, frankly, than I've got on, like, defence is a thing you should care about, and that's why. Yeah, that's what I said. So I just think more people talking about it, being much more defence and security aware in a field that often otherwise is slightly charry of defence is really important.
Thank you very much, Keith. Great talk. Thanks very much indeed. And one of our later speakers, Paul, will talk a bit more about how government is reaching out to startups and the kinds of things, if you're interested in, that you can do to get involved with. Our second speaker is somebody who's been trying to do that in practice. It's Enrique Munoz de Cote. Enrique is a machine learning academic and an entrepreneur who's got a background in game theory and computer science, mutable tactics. His startup has been backed by the guy who wrote the recent report on AI for the UK government, Matt Clifford. Enrique. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Easy clicker. Yes, perfect. Then the arrow down is the next slide.
Yep, perfect. All right. Well, this is going to be more of a personal journey through defense and early days for Mutable tactics. It's okay. So first of all, where do I come from? My background is in distributed systems. I've also always been in computer science. My PhD was in machine learning, and then my postdoc in Southampton was in multi-agent systems. I spent quite a bit of time, especially with BAE systems and NVDA during that postdoc, thinking about how to team up a bunch of robots, especially in a contested environment, so against an adversary. I was employee one, arguably, probably, if or second, not sure, at Secommind, a company just next building, thinking about how to do AI in a multi-agent environment. So how several AIs should collaborate to solve ever more complex problems. And I've led R&D teams for solving these kind of problems for BAE systems. And this is how I think the current state of affairs looks like today. This is a part of a conversation that just happened 15 days ago between Congress and the U.S. Defense Secretary, and the whole point was Ukraine attack to Russia had just happened a week before these comments, and the specific question that got my attention was if there was a similar situation today in a U.S. airbase, so on local turf, would the U.S. be able to defend itself against that attack? And there was no answer, and that was quite concerning. And especially because I've been to the US, especially recently, trying to fundraise for the company. One of the things that struck me is how the US thinks that what's happening in Ukraine is not a big problem. They're toys, playing against toys, very dangerous toys, but still, nevertheless, toys. And I think that starts to sink in that they're not toys, they're actually quite dangerous, and that can happen inside the US today. And because there is no answer to that problem, that is quite concerning. We're trying to solve for that specific type of problems, and some of the potential, just going into a little bit deeper into those kind of solutions for the problem of countering UAS, specifically for Type 1 drones, which are kind of like prevalent type of drones.
Sorry, Enrique, UAS?
UAS, unmanned air systems. So countering unmanned air systems, especially Type 1, which are the small quadcopter type drones that are quite prevalent in Ukraine, you would get these kind of potential solutions. All of them are quite good. Kind of rank them from good to best. All of these capabilities needs to exist, basically. These are, but some of them are probably better. And it really depends on type of where you're instantiating these solutions on. But some of them, for example, energy weapons would not be able to be deployed in a specific environment, especially in like civilian setups. Whereas, but probably the best kind of solutions would be to just have a drone fighting a drone. Today, we're trying to get into this area of sacrifice interceptors. We're not necessarily there. Right now, they're happening with like piloting drones, but we're trying to get a little bit more into like having more autonomous systems to do those kind of things, but we're not nearly there. Projectiles are something that are quite effective, obviously, but very dangerous in most situations, unless it's like really on a war kind of scenario. So yeah, the kind of gold standard is to have like drone against drone situation, and that's going to be definitely the future. Now, where we're building a solution for these type of things, the number one thing that we need to understand is where is the threat coming from. So have situation awareness of what's happening. This is an example of a prototype that we're building where it has a bunch of different cameras, different type of sensors that is trying to detect where a potential threat is coming from. The idea is you have this for a Shahed type of interceptor challenge, meaning that you have this kind of threat coming from the border, especially Ukraine. Now, like 500 of them a day or a night happening every day. So basically, you get pinned in the border when this kind of threat is taking place. They're being picked up by radars and things like that. Then command and control understands how many of them are coming, where are they coming from, and they do an assessment of how to counter that threat. They send some instructions to some teams, brigades, and things like that to be deployed and tell them where they need to be looking at. Now, the question here is between the time that you get actually pinged of there's a threat coming and where you actually look and the threat is in front of you, that nothing tells you exactly where that's coming from. So basically what we're doing, what right now is happening is that you have all these deployments of drones, first person view kind of robots that get deployed, and they never find a target because it's like very vast sky, and you don't get like precision of where the threat is coming from. So when we put something in the ground very close to where the effectors should be living, then we kind of like put a bullseye specifically of where the threat is coming from and help these very primitive type of robots to finish a mission. So that right now the effectiveness of these type of systems is like on the 10%. So they're very inefficient today. And the reason for that is that they're quite primitive. So they don't have enough compute, they don't have enough vision and sensors to, unless they were like super expensive. So the mastermind that sits on the ground very close to the effector should be able to compensate for that and have much better sensors, much better compute, and would be able to like give instructions to these interceptors to make them look at the right place at the right time. Now, this is a NATO Ukraine counter drone challenge that happened. Actually, it was sponsored by the Danish government. 75 submissions, including the primes, entered into this space. As you can suspect, most of the solutions actually were like, let me make you a much better interceptor that is capable of actually meeting that threat. But those things cost $500,000. And each of these things cost like $25,000. So that kind of asymmetry goes for something that's called an asymmetry war, and that is quite dangerous because, well, the maths just don't add up. If you send 500 of them and you counter with a solution that costs $500,000 each of them, then that's going to be a problem in the long term. So how do you solve for that? You want cheap. They're sending 500 of them a day. You definitely need a solution that kind of decomposes the problem and puts the expensive things on a platform that it's attritable and not just one way. And let the things that are actually one way that is never coming back be as cheap as possible. That's what we wanted to do. We won this competition together with other 5 solutions, very cheap interceptors, including those solutions, because it makes sense to have that kind of decomposability. So a potential solution could look something like that. It has a piece of hardware and a piece of software. Definitely, it will need to have sensors and be able to do some computation. But what we want to achieve with these is to have situation awareness, be able to understand what's happening in the environment in the best way possible, especially in a way that is not active sensing, like a radar, for example. So these a solution with just computer vision and a lot of AI would make sense for these type of problems. And then we're adding our kind of core components into that. This is an example of the type of things that we're doing with computer vision. It's using neuromorphic sensors. These are the kind of input that we would get with neuromorphic. Neuromorphic, it's a different kind of camera that will tell you information about movement. And that together with a classic RGB camera is quite powerful. But the whole kind of component is that, well, it uses very much off-the-shelf stuff to make a chip and let the big previously it was you used to build hardware by building super bespoke sensors, super bespoke things that cost a fortune. We're trying to flip that around and make the software do the heavy lifting, and using completely off-the-shelf hardware for that. Now it's possible to do these kind of things. Now, this kind of decomposability happens everywhere in robotics. I believe that the future of robotics will happen we'll have robots everywhere. I do believe that everything that moves that is not biological will be automated in a very robotic kind of way, and having infrastructure for those robots to make them cheap, that is potentially one of the most interesting things that we could be thinking about in terms of AI. They will be needed in farming, manufacturing, defense, but these are just some examples. A bit of a plug. We are hiring, and we need people from machine learning, obviously, computer vision, especially in robotics and embedded engineering.
Thank you very much, Enrique. So, questions? Mika.
Thank you for this. Do I understand you correctly? You're solving the detection part, so you have like a camera you built on Raspberry Pi based camera detection system for detecting the drones, and then there would be a separate solution for how do you actually take them down. But and you mentioned this could be at the border, but the whole thing with the Ukraine thing was they didn't fly them over, but they smuggled them on a truck or whatever they did, right? So then you'd have to have these cameras everywhere, wouldn't you? Or maybe near some sites that you think are strategic.
Yeah, that's a good point. Basically, this system that we're building, we call it Mastermind. It's something that really needs to understand what's happening, so have situation awareness, and be able to make some decisions on top of that. Just understanding that there's a threat, it's not nearly enough. What we need to do, we need to make decisions, we need to act at machine speed. And that's what the compute does for you. So once you understand the current situation, the real problem is, what do you send? Kind of like the Iron Dome, for example, right? You understand what's going on, then you need to understand like how do you counter that problem? And that's exactly where we excel at. That decision making bit, that's what we do specifically. There's other companies and other potential solutions that might work potentially even better in terms of situation awareness. If we have access to radars and other even satellite, that would be great. We want to be playing on that space where we do decision making. That's, I think, the missing piece of the puzzle.
Hi, great presentation. I think what got my attention was you mentioned physical AI in your software stack. Would you be able to expand a little on how you're using that and what do you really mean by physical AI?
Yeah, I believe like every robotic system will have some kind of AI autonomy on the edge, on the specific robot itself. It's very contested. So size, weight, and power are three major problems that you will have on the edge device. So you definitely will not have like infinite amount of compute to do on the edge. And you probably want to decompose that into other AIs that will be able to guide them more specifically what to do. It's that interaction between different AIs what I think is very interesting and powerful. That's what I mean by physical AI and kind of like the interplay between different physical AIs.
Okay, last question.
To say that they are using drones against drones would become a numbers game. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's not a good.
Totally right. Yeah, if it was a numbers game, I think we've lost that one. I think we need to be a lot more clever on how we think about AI. And this specific solution is more about teamwork. So it's trying to create the perfect Avengers team rather than just having the hundreds or thousands of Shenzhen type light show of homogeneous robots. We believe more on heterogeneous, tightly integrated team of tens potentially, but many of these teams. And I think that's a lot more powerful. So a well-integrated team of 10 can probably beat a team of hundreds, not well-integrated, swarm type. That's my belief.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Great presentation. So our final speaker is Paul Larcey. Paul works for the UK government on national security and defence, specifically around emerging technologies as both opportunities and threats, with a focus on connecting academia, business and funders to ensure UK sovereign resilience. He works academically as director of the Global Systemic Risk Group at Princeton. His background's in executive roles for industrial and technical companies, and he studied physics and material science, engineering and finance at undergrad and grad level, including here at the University of Cambridge. Paul Larcey, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That was my bio, which I wrote, so it sounds great. Do I need a microphone?
I think so.
Oh, okay, right. I usually don't. Right, where are my slides? So, Mark asked me to talk a little bit about how the UK government can support you. Keith has already told you how important you are going forward. So that's what I'm going to do. None of my slides are UK government branded because I'm going to say things which are not UK government agreed to. So, there you go. So Keith has already explained this. We're in a very, very different world than we were a few years ago. It's become much nastier. So I can't remember the international relations guru, professor, who in the late 90s said, "Don't worry, the bad times will return." And they have. So we're in a very, very unpleasant world. And I was in the main building today, Keith. We're trying to pull together something which will pull together the national security document that's just come out, the defence review and the defence industrial strategy, and we're going to make it into a seamless, simple to understand document. It's the MOD, so it will work. It's not just missiles and bombs, it's also the increasing cyber threat. I mean, all of you people know about this. We are being attacked. Only the US gets attacked more every single day by hostile actors. They are coming at us all the time. Not just the North Koreans trying to get to our nuclear codes, but the NHS, the post office are being attacked. All of these things are part of the resilience of our country, of our nation. And, it's slowly being eroded unless we defend against it. Cybercrime, what have we got there? $10 trillion this year. And that's not just a bunch of tow rags nicking it in a basement. This is North Korea stealing it, en masse, billions of dollars, helping build up their industrial and military infrastructure. So we're under threat. Some of these slides are quite wordy. I did say I'm happy to share them as a PDF because I've also put a list of people you might want to talk to about funding. So things are moving really fast. The Pentagon have asked for $3.2 billion in AI-related military research. The military robotics and autonomous market is going to go from 9 to 21 billion by 2032. Over 35% of all new developments in military systems in 2025 are going to have AI incorporated. I reckon that number will be higher. Next year and the years going forward, it will be nearer 80%. So there's a big market. There's a big market for you guys. And Europe, NATO, the UK are going to be part of that. You can see that mostly the fight is between China and the US. I'm doing some work at the moment with the Defense Academy. We're saying AI adoption in military, you've got sort of 3 groups. You've got China and US that are doing sort of strategic regional power plays, but then you've got other people who are doing fear of missing out. That includes us, France, Italy, those that have got established defense industries. Then you've got a sort of third tier who are saying, well, we haven't spent much on defense, so if we use AI, that will give us a force multiplier. Everybody is involved. A couple of things here that I thought were interesting. In 2024, I'm not going to try the Chinese on it, this system came out, the High Sky system, carrying 6 tons of ammunition, 100 drones inside the main body of loitering ammunitions, capable of acting as swarms controlled by AI, 50,000 feet, and can range 4,000 miles. These systems already exist. The point I made down there. Thank you, Enrique. I was about to say that, but China produces more drones in a day than the US in a year. This is showing the threat that China is pushing towards the West. Down here, this is a concept, but it's a South Korean design for a drone mothership. So think about this. You're not going to fill it with $200, $300 million F-35s and $10 million pilots. You're going to fill it with drones. So that's the way the direction of travel is. Now, Ukraine has been, unfortunately, the sort of cockpit of these designs going forward in drones and also autonomous systems. The offensive-defensive cycle in Ukraine at the moment is about 4 weeks, maybe 5, between Russia and China. So between Ukraine and Russia. And you're seeing how quickly people are having to innovate to the point now that drones can be easily knocked out by jamming, by GPS jamming. You're starting to have tethered drones. That seems to be the new direction of travel. So you can see there what Swarm did, as we all know, in the spiderweb attack on those Russian planes. And they have others planned, so I'm told. And I'm sure the Russians are doing the same. But if you can do that deep inside Russian territory, imagine what Russia could do to us. I'm working on a project at the moment with BAE Systems, and very similar to what Keith was saying about the Wargame podcast on, I think Sky actually, where we would last against a concentrated missile attack from Russia about a day and a half. We don't have anything left. So BAE, the government, we're trying to ramp something up that we were quite strong at about 20 years ago. And so, again, it was companies similar to the ones you work in. We asked for a hackathon. We had about 50 people apply, and we're looking at about 8, and we're doing 2 days. Again, there's some serious funding at the end of this, and it's all about solving the problems, which are going to be mostly AI focused. So, how can the government help you? So in February, we asked the Treasury for about 6 billion quid to look at these 5 critical areas. So AI, and I'll come back to that, quantum, future telecoms, semiconductors, and engineering biology. I haven't got the exact number of what they gave us, but we have 2 billion to spend on AI. And a substantial amount of that will be around security and defense. So these are some, I can't tell you exactly where the numbers are going to fit, but there's going to be an AI Security Institute, Sovereign AI, a Cyber AI program, and a Runway Accelerator. The Sovereign AI is all about frontier AI, and it's about how we can develop the stuff that you're working on, the companies that you have created, how we can make sure it gets funding, and also how we make sure that you stay in the UK, that you don't get taken off to Austin. And we've got a workshop coming up in Cambridge in September, and hopefully some of you will be able to attend that. We'll have a few politicians there, because we always do. And what I'd like is people to tell the truth, not because they'll be saying, "Oh, how amazing, we've given you all this money." It's our money anyway. But you've got to say to them, "No, this is the architecture you've got to put in place so that we stay here." Keith spoke about the strategic defence review. These are the 5 points of it. Move to a war-fighting readiness. What is the concept behind that is that the UK armed forces will be 10 times more lethal than they are currently. And that's only going to work through autonomous systems. It's not going to work through boots on the ground. Driving for growth. The whole sector is going to be one of the main drivers of growth within the UK. There is money coming into the system, both from government and importantly from the private sector. NATO first, we're not going to spend so much time pretending that we can do anything with China. UK innovation, learning the lessons from Ukraine. I've just spoken about Ukraine. What can we learn from that? At the Defence Academy down in Shrivenham, we have a lot of Ukrainian people coming there talking to us. We talk to them. Again, we're going to need to talk to people like you to say what coding, what can we do to outfox some of the defensive aspects of Russian drones. And whole of society, as Keith said, in the Second World War, we were all part of this. This is not just some sort of technocratic exercise that will get sorted out. We're all part of defending Western democracy and our way of life. And do you know what? I can't remember where I took this from, but it's one of the endless government documents. But it does talk about secure our future for homegrown AI. And you can see there that that's what we're planning to do. And you have to be part of it, but you have to be part of it proactively. Otherwise, some civil servant with an English lit degree will be writing this stuff. And you're the people that know how it works. So you've got to be actively part of it. This is really, really crowded. I don't really want to go too much, but again, I'm happy to share it. This is how we connect the national security and defence system across UKRI. We have capabilities down here, and we have our products and services. And it's the products and services that I think are interesting to you. I'll talk a little bit about DASA. I'll talk a little bit about DTEP. We have all these areas here. There is funding here, but you have to actively go for that funding. You have to look at it and decide what fits. And I'll come to how you answer the questions. But as I say, happy to share these, Mark. So yeah, and I've put my email on the front of the slide, and I'm happy to talk to you and link you with the right people that can assist you both from the technology, the collaboration side, and also potentially the funding. And we're doing for time. Okay, so funding opportunities. In the spring statement, they said they're going to put 400 million into accelerating defence and security innovation. So DASA is the MOD's defence accelerator. Those are open calls. You can at any time ask for funding between 100 and 350,000 is average. You can get a little bit more, but they are completely open. You've got the Defence AI Centre with AI innovation focus. I can't remember exactly how much you get from them. I run some of the Innovate UK IX challenges. These are fast sprints, and I've bought in about 3 million quid for small startups, working with not just MOD, but working with the security services. So I work a lot with SIS. The new head of SIS, Blaze, comes from their tech team and is very, very, very keen on AI. There's going to be a lot of funding going into that. You don't have to have security clearance to start at the early stages. You can come in slowly. In the past, they used to do everything internally. Now they have to reach out to people like you because it's moving so quick. You've got HMGCC, His Majesty's Government Communications Centre, are based up the road in Milton Keynes. They've been around 85 years, and they work across all the security sector and the defence sector. On their website, they have a portal, and they put up challenges as well. Again, small sprints, looking for quick solutions to specific problems. The MOD have something called Defence Technology Exploitation Programme that I run, and there we will give you £1 million to work with a defence prime. I'd say about 30% of that is AI related. It's on hold at the moment until the defence spending review is signed, but it'll come back on, and we've got about 30 million we're throwing at this. The NSSC and GCHQ Accelerator, worth looking there. There's opportunities there. There's something that Innovate UK run called Cyber ASAP, where you get 20,000 quid for a 2-month sprint on cyber security, and it's aimed at academics. You're going to have this DTI, UKRI sovereign AI funding, which I spoke about. NSIF, the National Security Innovation Fund, also will fund you, will look after you and find people to work with you. And also, don't forget the NATO Innovation Fund is there. Importantly, areas of interest, autonomous logistics, use of AI in intelligence analysis and exploitation of operational data. I've done a lot of work with SIS on that. The analysts get huge amounts of information. How do they see the pattern? How do they make sense of it? Human-machine teaming for military effect, machine speed decision-making, efficiency and support systems. Also, start thinking about how we move away from the commercial AI model, where there's a lot of data. In defense, there's not much data, but we want it to be quality. So how can we move into a different model of interpretation? Also, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, third wave AI, which is really being pushed by DARPA, is going to be the solution to a lot of these military issues. So how to prepare? Study the various .gov websites, look for the opportunities, sign up to the Innovate UK Complex Systems newsletter. That's the group I'm in. We look after defense, security, AI, robotics, space and geospatial, and industrial mathematics. And what we do in the monthly newsletter, we aggregate all the funding opportunities that are available. So well worth signing up for that. Offer dual use. Look at dual use. That's what we're looking for. It's what funders are looking for. So you're spreading a little bit of risk. Look for the strategic fit. Really think, look at some of the documents we're writing, understand what the strategy is going forward. Start mapping potential prime partners, form some strong alliances. Understand the procurement process within MOD and the security services. It's not as difficult as it looks, and we are there to help you. We will talk you through it. Also, when you're applying for any competition, answer the exam question. I do a lot of assessments, and people just haven't answered the question. If you don't answer the question, you're not going to get the funding. And also, it's a new project, we can help you find VC funding by linking you with a VC who wants to invest in your sector, who wants to invest in the technology you've got, rather than just a dog and pony show, which you often get. That's not quite there yet, but it will be soon, and you've got my email, so please come and talk to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, any questions from the audience? Do you want to carry on?
Very good call to action there. And it was very interesting. You said at the start that the innovation cycle in the Ukraine-Russia conflict is about 4 weeks. How is £2 billion of funding going to help us reach that level when it takes more than 4 weeks to get a meeting with any defence prime?
No, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. And as I said, I've not put any sort of government branding on that. No, it's useless. Okay, so there are methods and there are ways through it. You know, I put my email up there. We can connect you really quickly. And one of the areas we're looking for is to move beyond the primes. Now, there's always this target in MOD to get 35% of SMEs. It never quite works, but I'm told by my political masters that this is going to be the absolute drive, that the 400 million for defence acceleration is about what we're doing, which is to get you in front of the end user, and without hopefully the prime being in the middle. I can't promise anything. There's meant to be, coming up, a SME portal on the MOD site that will enable you to get straight to the right end user you need to speak to. But I haven't seen it yet.
Thank you. Next one.
Thank you.
Who is dealing with the spreading of fake news?
Sorry, I can't hear.
Who is dealing with spreading of fake news and disinformation to the public?
What, from the British side or somebody else?
Government side. I mean, that's the greatest weapon and danger.
Are you asking me who's doing that from the British side?
British government.
Right. Well, if I knew, I couldn't tell you. Yes, people do stuff. There is an MOD intelligence unit. Whether they spread fake news or real news, I don't know. But I don't get involved in that. Sorry.
So there is no funding, there's no.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. So there's funding in certain parts of defence, but a lot of it is hidden. And I don't think the UK particularly engages in promoting fake news.
Counter.
Oh, you mean counter? Okay, so that there are. Yes, okay, well, you were slightly confusing me. There are counter groups who look at the feeds that are coming into the UK. I don't deal with that. That's not my area.
So excellent presentation. Thank you very much. The background of my question is about 15 years ago, I was involved with the what was called the Center for Defense Enterprise.
Yeah.
And we pulled a lot of good technologies. We you're doing this now, and you've solved a lot of problems. One of the operational business problems that we had then was a bit foreshadowed by the earlier questioner. The early stage innovative startups were able to come up with some fantastic ideas, leaps and bounds ahead of anything conceived, but let alone on the market. The problems came in when it was time to pull that through to actual production and use on the battlefield. And there was typically a need to scale up to defense level production in terms of volume, quality, integration with other systems. How are you addressing all of that?
So that is slightly above my pay grade, but there is a new directorate and a director of munitions, which it's not just munitions, it's about that industrial acceleration. So there is a new defense industrial strategy that I've been reading today because we're trying to get this sort of simplified document. Again, the government have said they see defense as a major growth sector for the economy. Pulling through that sort of innovation side all the way through to the end users is a challenge. I'm not gonna say it's not. I mean, that's why I've not put any government related slides up to say, it's all been solved and it's all going to be simple. It's not. And I was saying to a couple of people this workshop I'm going to do in September about how we get sort of frontier AI. I want it to be really uncomfortable for senior civil servants and any politician that pops up, because it's not, oh, we've given you 2 billion quid. No, we need the structure to make these things work. So I can see some of the methods that I think are going to work, but at the same time, it's really frustrating, and so I share your pain.
Just one here and then here.
Thank you for your talk. Very interesting. My question is: there's been a lot of talk about AI, but where does robotics automation fit into that landscape? Is that part of it? Because sometimes people say AI is just code.
Sure.
But you also have to think about the hardware once upon.
Yeah, no, absolutely, a very good point. So we've just had a massive boost for our robotics side, and any element of autonomy. If we're going to get to that 10 times lethality, we're going to need robots. So there's some interesting investment in robotics coming through. So yeah, it's acknowledged. Yeah.
And finally, Keith.
Well, this might be a bit of a dolly up for you to say something, I think, but there's two questions in this. One you might not know the answer to, I don't know the answer to, but it's what happened to the attempt to sort of channel pension funds and significant private sector funding? If you do know, I think everybody would be totally excited.
Yeah.
The other question I have is something that was put to me actually at Cambridge by one of the people who helped establish the Turing Institute.
Yeah.
He said one of the problems with the way the UK allocates funding is we go for fairness. We have loads and loads of really small grants, and the problem with that is that winner takes all. installed in a lot of these domains, and actually,
Yeah.
very big grants to a smaller number of things might be more successful, but it wouldn't be very popular.
Yeah.
I'm interested in whether what the current thesis is as to how we should go about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, completely. And, if only we had a British DARPA. Well, and we do, but it's been funded to 2/5 of bugger all. Yeah, exactly, 800 million, what you do with that. And, if we had that US model, it would be very different. I mean, the trouble, throwing huge amounts at one person, the defense primes, what do we get? What value do we get out of them? So yeah, it's a challenge. In terms of unleashing funding, I was at a meeting which was Treasury, MOD, DCIT, and so I'm sounding very negative, but that's working in government makes you a bit like that. And there is this drive to trusted capital, patient capital, unlocking pension funds. And also, I'm on a thread now and a call I'm going to have. A major high street bank wants to get involved in this sector. They have to overcome, when the world was all fluffy and lovely and everybody was clutching rainbow unicorns, they put in all that ESG stuff. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you're in defence, you go to a bank, they look at you the same as if you're in the porn business or selling cannabis. So, but they now realise, yeah.
Quite attractive.
Yeah, but bankers have got ethics. So. I know, yeah. So no, they've suddenly realised that, blimey, 5% GDP going to this sector, everyone's going to need all this stuff. They need to get back in the game. So they are saying, how can we get back in the game without anybody knowing about it? So they're talking about so ESG, they're talking about, the sustainability side is we have to sustain our society. So we have to defend it. So they'll come up with some Weasley words. Yeah.
How do we do it without anybody knowing? That's the security side of defence and security.
No, they don't want. They just don't want people to know they've invested. Yeah,
absolutely. That's the security side of the thing happening without.
Yeah. So it is shifting. Also in the VC world, I'm seeing more private offices come in. So a private office is potentially better than a VC who's going to want their funds back in 3 years. A private office, you'll get more patient capital, maybe 5, even longer. Years to sort of play around with. So I think the landscape's changing. I think it's going to move really fast because 1, the threat, and 2, people can see they're going to make money out of it. So their ethics change completely.
Thank you on that uplifting note. Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank Chanel and Laura of Innovate Cambridge. I don't know how many of you are here for the first time, but the idea of this place is it's a hub for the early stage businesses and so on in Cambridge. And in fact, earlier today we talked about doing, which I think we're going to set up here, regular office hours, kind of pro bono office hours on commercialization for early stage businesses. So if anyone's interested in getting involved in that, it's me and a couple of others are going to be happening on Friday lunchtime, the 18th of July. And I'd also like to thank Conrad, Jenny, and Zach, who's not here, for doing all the AV tonight and getting it set up and as ever, and there's a lot of organisation goes into these events. The next one we're going to be doing on the 4th of September is going to be about legal AI, and that's going to be back up at the Bradfield Centre. And then finally, another thank you, which I forgot earlier, we have some fruit from our friends at the Cambridge Fruit Company who've laid that on for us, and they're available to do fruit deliveries to anyone who wants regular fruit deliveries across Cambridge. Neil Barad were there. So thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've got just a bit less than an hour for networking here, and thanks very much for coming tonight.